webinar this evening. I'm so happy to be able to have you join us for this webinar, that I can share this information with you, and hopefully information that you'll really be able to implement in order to be able to improve the quality of your life, the state of your health and well-being, and of course, utilizing a great internet technology to be able to reach out to people that are beyond my immediate geographical area. And I really want to acknowledge that those of you that are joining us this evening, you're really a group of people that obviously want to be much more self-reliant about your health. You want to be able to learn what you can do in order to be able to promote your health, well-being, reduce the risk of serious disease. And from that point of view, I want to congratulate you, because I think that's exactly the attitude that's going to be necessary in order for us to meet the challenges that we are all facing in terms of being able to not only stay healthy, but to promote our health, to increase our health, and to be able to withstand the forces that are operating, which unfortunately are pushing us in a different direction. So tonight we're going to be talking about one of my absolutely favorite subjects, activating the doctor within. And one reason why this is such an important subject is because it's central, I believe, to what it really takes for us to be able to be healthy and promote our health and well-being. And so I've prepared a slide presentation. We'll go through the slides rather quickly, but I think you'll certainly, at the end of the presentation, have a lot of food for thought, and hopefully a lot of value from what's being shared. So let me just begin here with our first slide. And of course, this is what I describe as a comprehensive approach to promoting, protecting, and recovering your health. And in addition to my congratulations to you for being a part of this effort to improve your own health, that by the time of, at the conclusion of this presentation, you will have, I think, a lot of insight as to how to be able to accomplish your health goals. So first of all, I want to just discuss the whole fundamental concept of healing, whether from taking an antibiotic or through taking an herb or a homeopathic medicine or a nutritional supplement, whether from seeing a neurosurgeon, a holistic medical practitioner, chiropractor, acupuncturist. Healing, the actual phenomena of healing is a capacity from within you. And this is perhaps the most important, from my point of view, the most important slide in the entire presentation this evening. This is a quote from Dr. Albert Schweitzer, medical missionary, theologian, humanitarian, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. And I came across this quote early in my medical career. I was at the medical school at Columbia University, the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I had completed a year of postgraduate training at the Denver General Hospital in Denver, Colorado. And I came across this quotation from Dr. Schweitzer. Quote, "It's supposed to be a professional secret, but I'll tell you anyway. Within every patient, there resides a doctor, and we as physicians are at our best when we put our patients in touch with the doctor inside themselves. And I think that this is absolutely just so telling, because first of all, he begins this quote by saying it's supposed to be a professional secret. In other words, this is supposed to be just something that's known by the doctors and those in the health professional field. But he was going to go ahead and reveal this. He actually revealed it to Norman Cousins. In any case, what he acknowledged here as a theologian, a medical missionary, Nobel Prize winner, is that within each one of us, there is a doctor inside. And from that point on in my medical career, I wanted to understand not only about the cause of disease, the cause of chronic disease, but I wanted to understand more about the doctor within. These were the primary questions I asked myself. Why do we get sick to begin with, particularly from chronic disease, when the body is just a miracle of creative intelligence? And number two, what did Schweitzer mean when he said there was a doctor within? So what we'd like to address this evening are three basic ideas. First of all, to recognize the reality of this physician within. Number two, that we can activate it by utilizing our own consciousness around what I refer to as a health consciousness. And step number three is to actually focus one's health consciousness by effective mind-body technologies. So in this first step, recognizing the reality of the doctor within, we have now more and more science that's coming out all the time from the major university medical centers talking about the causes of chronic disease. Back when I was first in medical practice decades ago, what I would talk about to patients in terms of issues of stress and toxicity and processed food, there was, in many ways, there was not really a lot of science about these things. We just knew that lifestyle factors were very important, but there wasn't the science that we have now. And yet with all the science that we do have that's clarifying the cause of chronic disease, I believe that the doctor within is the single most important resource you have to protect and restore your health. Think of the intelligence that designed and grew the body from a single fertilized cell. Just think of that intelligence that was able to take a single fertilized cell and create from it 70 to 100 trillion cells, many highly specialized cells. And the intelligence that created the body, that intelligence is able to heal the body. And the whole basis for our health really comes down to the health of our cells. When you think again about that intelligence that was responsible for building the living biological machinery of the body, actually started it running before it was even completed. And it built it as it was running. Just absolutely astounding. Now we see the power of this self-healing capability with regard to just wound healing. We cut ourselves and the body immediately through the intelligence within begins to bring about a wound healing response. We're exposed to a virus or bacteria and immediately the immune response, again, orchestrated by the doctor within, responds to that potential infections. These are examples of what we could say an automatic self-healing capacity, but we have much greater capacities for self-healing than just what happens automatically when we consciously activate the healing response, which occurs in accordance with laws, universal healing principles. So it all begins by understanding the reality and the power of the doctor within. And we can see that this power is absolutely stunning in terms of its capacity. The placebo effect is well recognized in medicine and healthcare. The physician's belief in the treatment and the patient's faith in the physician. This has a very mutually reinforcing beneficial effect. A powerful remedy in and of itself, the placebo effect. They're always trying to exclude the placebo effect when they're testing pharmaceutical drugs. And the research is growing in terms of the power of the mind through the placebo effect to bring about beneficial changes. In this one study, 21 to 40% of patients, depending upon the study type, have reported this kind of placebo benefit. And then the second concept, which again demonstrates the power of the doctor within, is spontaneous remission, where for reasons that cannot be explained, even advanced, potentially terminal illness could go through what's referred to as a spontaneous remission. In this one case, in this one study, they were looking at 22% of all breast cancer cases underwent spontaneous regression. So this is just the power of the physician within, the doctor within. So we say that there are definitely tremendous universal forces within you waiting to move into action to bring you to a higher state of health and well-being. And it begins with understanding, acknowledging, and then mobilizing the awesome power of nature for self-healing. Because the same intelligent power that maintains the universe is present within us. Think of the power that moves the planets around the sun in our solar system, and our solar system moving around the center of the galaxy, and the galaxies in the universe. The power, the intelligence that's involved there is actually available to us, even connected to every single cell and the space between them. So there's one ultimate healing law or principle, which, as we understand more and more, we can use to our benefit. That this healing intelligence of the doctor within is an individualized expression of the one intelligence that's the source of everything that exists. And of course, the modern physicists are now talking about, ever since Einstein, trying to discover the unified field theory, the grand unified theory, the understanding that in spite of everything appearing to be separate, there's a tremendous unity, a unified field behind all that exists. So once we get a more clarity with regard to recognizing the presence of the doctor within, the next thing that we want to learn is how we can activate it. And the activation is actually, in a very exciting way, through utilizing our own health consciousness. Now, what do we mean by a health consciousness, and particularly its role in creating and promoting our health? Well, health consciousness has to do with our mindset, the beliefs that we hold about health, about healing, about disease, all of the concepts that we hold that govern our belief about health and healing or about disease. This is all part of our consciousness. And when we talk about a health consciousness, we have to understand that I believe this is the most important and often forgotten key to vibrant health and recovery from health challenges. Because, and this is a very important point to recognize, we've literally been conditioned by the prevailing culture to be dependent on, generally speaking, there are exceptions, but generally dependent on the medical profession to keep us healthy, while ignoring the greatest ally that we have available through the proper use of our own consciousness, to utilize our consciousness in a way in which it promotes our health and well-being. So a little bit more detail on this idea of a health consciousness, because it's so central to activating the doctor within. It's the mindset which thinks and feels through the lens of health rather than disease. And this absolutely flies in the face of our current healthcare business models, which unfortunately are just continually bombarding us with the idea that illness and disease is almost inevitable, that the answer lies in the next pharmaceutical drug or medical procedure. Now, it's not to say that there isn't a place for conventional pharmaceutical drugs or surgeries and other procedures. Of course, these are life-saving. But we have to be able to see the use of pharmaceutical medicines, surgical procedures, while they may be life-saving, they have to be complemented with what we can do to use more natural approaches that, when they are appropriate, could offer benefit without the risks that go along with a lot of the conventional medications. But of course, the economic models that predominate in our culture now, obviously there is a financial incentive to be able to constantly be treating disease rather than educating people, empowering people with what they can do to stay healthy, or more natural ways in which they can deal with their health challenges. Again, we're acknowledging that there's a place, life-saving in many cases, from conventional medicine and conventional medicine technology. But in terms of our health consciousness, we're virtually programmed to have a default mindset that almost expects, where the expectation is that we'll need drugs for inevitable chronic disease. See, I believe that two of the greatest mistakes of modern medicine is the fact that there's been this tremendous separation between the mind and the body, and the separation between spirituality and science. This has really taken the heart out of healthcare in many ways and reduced it to a very materialistic and mechanistic worldview, where the body is seen as a complex biological machine that breaks and needs to be fixed like a car. The thinking of which makes sense in an emergency, but when it comes to the prevention and treatment of chronic disease, is very inadequate. Here we have Dr. Benson, the founder of the Harvard Medical School's Mind-Body Institute, clarifying that 65 to 90% of all illness, 75 to 90% of medical office visits are due to stress. And the science now, more and more, this particular research looked at stress and intestinal barrier function. They're talking about the connection between emotional and psychological stress and inflammation of the gastrointestinal system. So this division of mind and body, this division of spirituality and science, this has really not served us, and particularly because it keeps a paradigm going which really, in many ways, denies the higher powers that are available to us through the doctor within, and how we can actually activate that inner potential for self-healing through our own health consciousness. So there's a science of self-healing, these spontaneous remissions, the placebo effect, all of these instances throughout history of healings, even a very significant physical challenges through non-material means, demonstrate that there are laws and principles involved. And while there may be many different methods or modalities, many different schools of medical practice or healthcare intervention, it's kind of like having many different oil rigs drilling in different places, but they're all going to be effective if they hit that single pool of oil below. Because there's one source, but they're able to tap it through various different oil rigs. So what we want to do is understand as much as possible the common denominator to all of these various methods that will actually activate the doctor within. And it brings us to the recognition that the body, even the nervous system is tremendously fluid, and that things that in the past we thought of as being very static, like the idea that the brain and the brain neurons, nerve cells, are physiologically static, is now being replaced with the concept of plasticity of the nervous system, that there's tremendous flexibility and possibility of change and alteration, again, in many ways being driven by our own thinking. Here we're looking at the power of the mind to change the brain by focusing attention away from negative behaviors and towards positive ones. Patients were able to make permanent changes to their own neural pathways. That's from Dr. Schwartz at the UCLA School of Medicine. So what are the secret keys, so to speak, to activate the doctor within? So we need to consciously activate through the power of our own consciousness. It's a shift in consciousness from a disease-oriented consciousness to a health-oriented consciousness. And this mindset, this consciousness based on health-promoting beliefs, has an ultimate creative function, particularly if our thoughts are packaged with strong emotional feeling. And we have the choice, really, it's a matter of the choice that we have between what kind of orientation do we want to have with regard to our health? Do we want to buy into the kind of programmed and conditioned idea that disease is inevitable? Or do we want to align ourselves with a health consciousness, and particularly being open to bringing in the idea of a doctor within that's activated by a health consciousness that's under our control, that this is an inner higher power for healing, bringing that kind of vertical dimension into the equation so that we have that vertical as well as horizontal power that comes from the particular modality or technique, but which is bringing in a higher power, an inner power. And the more that we can conceive of this intelligence operating within us to benefit us in terms of our health and well-being, the more powerful our thinking and, again, our health consciousness becomes. It really revolves around the expectancy of having a health outcome, of having a positive health outcome. So in our third step here, we want to be able to, yes, activate the doctor within with our own health consciousness, but because there are so many directions that our consciousness can go, yes, the first and foremost is to shift from a disease-oriented consciousness to a health consciousness. But even in terms of health consciousness, there's just so much input, so much information. That's why it's important to stay focused on what you can do to promote your health rather than kind of falling into a pattern where you have your attention on the obstacles that stand in your way. This is why we're seeing a rise in new innovative paradigms for healthcare, such as functional medicine, where we're looking at not just disease diagnoses, but we're looking at mechanisms and causes of disease at the deepest level. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see consciousness-based mind-body medicine with the emphasis on a vertical, mental and spiritual dimension as being first and foremost, as well as then the more, we can say, horizontal material modalities, which have to do with techniques and particular material means that we might be using to promote health and healing. So in light of all of this, people will often ask, well, what about the genes? What about the genetic factors? And really, it turns out, and I'm seeing how, and I'm sure you are as well, you're seeing things now on TV where they're beginning to finally say that 5 to 10% is governed by genes, but 90 to 95% is governed by factors beyond our genetic material. And the single most important of these so-called epigenetic factors is, in fact, our beliefs, our consciousness, our mindset. But the science is clarifying that these epigenetic factors, like our beliefs, mindset, but also our lifestyle choices around food, around exercise, about what kind of environmental exposure we may have to toxins in the environment, that all of that is affecting the genetic information in such a way that it creates what is being referred to as the chronic inflammation and accelerated cellular decay that is at the basis of virtually all of the chronic disease that we're facing. So even in this Time magazine article, which went back, I think it was 2004, so we're talking about 11 years ago, they're talking about the link between inflammation and all of these problems. So to be able to address from a health consciousness point of view, some of these epigenetic factors, we first of all have to begin with just eating real food. We don't realize, so many people don't realize the impact of the processing of the food. So we want to eat healthy, anti-inflammatory foods, unprocessed fruits and vegetables, again, free-range chicken and organic eggs and dairy and grain-fed beef. And we want to be able to understand the nuances of eating a whole diet that contain all of the elements for our cellular health, and reducing ongoing exposure to the toxins in our environment. These are some wonderful resources for you. Environmental Working Group is ewg.org. Another resource is Campaign for Safe Cosmetics. We want to, on a daily basis, not just think in terms of detoxification as something we do once a year or once a season, but it's something that we want to build into our daily routine. Purified water and exercise, the use of steam baths or saunas, regular exercise, yoga, qigong, all of these things that will promote cleansing and detoxification. Adding detoxifying foods virtually every day. And one of the most important things that we can do is to care for our digestive health. I mean, for decades, we knew that probiotics were important in terms of gastrointestinal health. But now the science on this is absolutely incredible in terms of clarifying why it is so important to have a healthy gastrointestinal flora, what we mean a community of healthy microorganisms in the GI tract. It's estimated that there are between 500 and 1,000 species of bacteria in the human gut. And bacterial cells are, in fact, much smaller than human cells, and there are at least 10 times as many bacteria as human cells in the body. And this has now been referred to as the human microbiome. And we have more and more science that is clarifying and confirming the connection between the friendly community of microorganisms in the gut and the capacity for each of us to effectively detoxify many of the poisons and many of the products, the end products of metabolism, before they're reabsorbed into the circulation. There's also more and more science on the connection between the gastrointestinal tract, the flora there, the friendly bacteria, and our immune system. In fact, the cells that line the gastrointestinal tract, they make up 70% of the immune cells within the body. And so when there's dysfunction and disorder of these gastrointestinal cells that line the GI tract, that in a very adverse way affects our immune system. One of the most exciting research developments is now with regard to the gut and the brain and the connection between the two, looking at the importance of the signaling pathways between the gastrointestinal tract and the brain. In fact, in this journal, Neurogastroenterology and Motility, well, look at the name of it, Neurogastroenterology. They're talking about nerve. Neuro means nerve. Gastroenterology means the GI tract. You see, the whole movement of research now is how things are integrated, and the specialization of conventional medicine is becoming obsolete because in terms of chronic disease, everything is so interconnected. Here we're talking about a connection between the gut and the brain, and how the ability of this microbiota, this flora, this community of friendly bacteria allows a healthy connection to the brain. In fact, some of you might be aware of the leaky gut syndrome, where you have problems with the lining of the gut and it predisposes to autoimmune illnesses and allergies because toxins and pre-digested food particles are able to enter the blood circulation through a leaky gut. But now they're talking about a leaky brain, where these kind of elements can pass through the blood-brain barrier to create all kinds of psychological, mental, and emotional problems. That's why it's so important to fortify your gut with healthy bacteria, taking probiotic supplements. Of course, then you get into the question, well, which supplements? These are not all created equal. Consuming probiotic foods, fermented vegetables, sauerkraut, kimchi. This is, again, a lifestyle that we want to embark on. And even some prebiotic foods, those that help to feed the friendly bacteria, more artichokes and garlic, beans, onions, and asparagus, for example. And then when it comes to nutritional supplementation, to be able to get not only the quality supplements, but the ones that are really most necessary in your particular system. Because just like snowflakes, we say here, no two individuals are exactly the same. Your nutritional needs are unique to you, what we call biochemical individuality. And therefore, we want to look for personalized assessments in order to be able to choose the best supplements based on our biochemical and nutritional needs. And the most important, again, I think, comes back to this whole mind-body connection, a sustained shift in consciousness, bringing in the vertical resources, the sense of a higher power, of a spiritual source that complements what we do horizontally with various material aspects of our lifestyle, diet and exercise, but bringing in a vertical dimension so that we have the most power to be able to effectively restore our health or promote our health and well-being. And it is so easy for us to be distracted. So much information. I mean, without a focus, you want to be able to find the most effective and practical vehicle for you to activate the doctor within, among many different methods to choose from. And then to use that one method that works best for you and use it consistently over a period of time to develop a laser focus so that it's a life skill that you're using in a way to shift your consciousness 180 degrees in the opposite direction from the way the trend of our entire culture and society is moving. To be able to go from a disease-oriented consciousness to a health consciousness. And the science on this is demonstrating just a shift from frustration to appreciation and gratitude can dramatically affect the heart rhythms, can affect the brainwave activity, can affect the immune system, can affect the hormonal system, just from a shift into a state of gratitude and appreciation. Of course, how to maintain a sustained attitude such as appreciation or gratitude. That's the challenge. It's easy to say, but to make that shift and to have it as a new pattern, as a new habit of one's life, that we're living in a health consciousness rather than a disease consciousness. That's the challenge. This is something that conceptually, theoretically, it's easy to understand. Oh, sure, a health consciousness. I want that. I want to be more grateful. I want to be more positive. But to have it as an ongoing mental and emotional habit rather than the default position, which is the whole thrust of the society generally, which is to somehow have us thinking in other than a healthy way. And how do you know that you're moving towards the goal? Well, because you'll actually have feedback from your own sense of peace and well-being, increasing happiness, even in the midst of very challenging circumstances that sometimes we're called upon to face in our health or in our life situation. We all can have very significant, sometimes very traumatic life experiences that even in the midst of that we can have a consciousness about it that will allow us to be able to overcome what otherwise would be a sense of hopelessness and really be able to have a peace of mind even when faced with a very significant challenge. So we need effective and personalized methods. What I mean by they have to be effective, they have to work, but they have to be personalized so that it's something that you can do on an ongoing basis in order to change the mindset, to change the consciousness and have a new pattern or habit established. So it has to be easy for you to implement, but still have the power to transform your health and well-being. What we're talking about is a shift in the 180 degrees in the opposite direction that most of us would be usually headed if we sort of buy into the mindset of the overall society or culture. And not only make that shift, but achieve and maintain this state based on specific and definite steps that we can take each and every day. So I'd like to be able to suggest to you that in terms of what I've shared this evening, and there's a lot for you to consider and think about, and you might consider arranging a personal telehealth video consultation in order that I could help you to implement, because again, information is important. It's a first step to get information, to get an understanding. But in order to get the actual benefit, to get the actual results, that's what counts. That's what we're looking for, is not just that we become knowledgeable or aware or theoretically aware, but we actually are seeing definitive change in terms of our health and our well-being. So what would such a personal telehealth video consultation, as I'm suggesting, what does that address? So first of all, we want to be able to utilize the advancement of the scientific technology that is now available to us that just wasn't there just even a few years ago. Comprehensive metabolic screenings for cellular inflammation, including inflammation in the gut, in the blood vessels. There are some restrictions that apply in terms of me being able to offer those screenings through a consultation, but they are available, and either I can provide them for you or your own doctor could look into these very innovative tests that will at some point, hopefully before too long, become really kind of mainstream. Then there's the personalized nutritional and toxicity evaluations in order to be able to, as I say, find the right combination of the highest quality supplements that can help you to provide the cellular health, but also to promote the detoxification that is so important in an ongoing day-to-day basis. And of course, all of this is in the context of an integrative and personalized program that centers on health consciousness and advanced stress relief. So I want to just take, in the final minutes here, a few minutes just to show you about some of the laboratory testing that's now available, since the inflammation concept is so central to the cause and prevention and of chronic disease and recovery from chronic disease, to deal with this chronic inflammatory state that I touched on in the earlier part of the presentation. The cellular damage that occurs through stress, through toxins, through processed food. This creates an inflammatory, we can say a kind of inflammatory fire at the cellular level. And we can detect this kind of progressing inflammation, hopefully in the very early stages, with various, what we can say, biomarkers of cellular inflammation. And we would want to catch it early, because as it becomes more and more well established, the inflammation, that's when we have the catastrophic events that we obviously want to avoid, or the catastrophic diagnoses that of chronic disease, cancer, dementia, heart attacks, strokes. These things are largely preventable, particularly if we can deal with it early on. That's why I have focused virtually my entire career medical career to the issue of prevention and reducing the risk, because it does get much, much more complicated and complex as things are allowed to progress. And even from the National Institutes of Health, they're recognizing that 50% of the people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol levels. Isn't this stunning? Because for the average person out there, and even the average doctor, they think, well, we're just going to kind of follow your cholesterol. Maybe we'll follow the bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol. And yet here we have a situation where 50% of people with heart attacks have normal cholesterol levels. And it's because the science is way ahead of what is being done practically through most of the medical community. Again, integrative functional medical doctors and other health professionals are now taking the science and making it available to people early on. But for it to become mainstream, probably it will be yet a number of years before the science catches up and we begin to do the screening that's available to you today based on very, very strong science. Let's just take a few minutes to just consider even the issue of cholesterol, because there are just so many folks out there who are on cholesterol-lowering drugs because their total serum cholesterol or low density LDL cholesterol is high. But what we're finding out is that it's not the cholesterol itself, it's the lipoproteins that carry the cholesterol that make the difference. And it's not just the number of your LDL. It's also the size of the LDL particles. Their size, their number, their density, all of these things really are now measurable. And what we also know from the science, that it's not even really the LDL particles, even the small particles, which so easily cause the inflammation, but it's the degree to which the LDL particles are oxidized. And we now have tests to be able to measure the level of oxidized LDL, so that we are getting much closer to being able to give people a true indication of their risk, as opposed to using the standard kinds of screening that, as I say, in many cases are just outdated by the latest science. The F2 isoprostanes, one of the earliest markers of oxidative stress, free radical damage, which is kind of the rusting in the body that occurs within the blood vessels. We can now measure these things long before people actually have a significant diagnosis or symptoms. Then moving to the GI tract, the gastrointestinal tract, as I said, this gut flora is so important, and it can be so readily disturbed, our community of friendly bacteria, by the use of all of the over-the-counter medications, the NSAIDs, certainly antibiotics that are used unnecessarily. There are so many factors that can stress, that can disturb the microflora, the microbiome. And on that basis, we want to be able to ideally test the health of the gastrointestinal tract. We're looking for infection and inflammation, metabolic imbalance. These tests are all available to us. We can look at gluten sensitivity, food allergies. We can look at toxic element profiles to see whether or not people have absorbed heavy metals, which can be, I mean, it's like a low-grade poisoning that occurs when people over a period of time accumulate these heavy metals or other toxins. And we can evaluate and make the assessments so that people have that much more of a motivation to be able to introduce, as I said earlier, the detoxifying foods or a detoxification program that they work into their daily lifestyle to reduce the impact. Personalized nutritional evaluations where, again, through simple to take questionnaires done online, we're able to determine what nutrients, doses, that even the best times to take the supplements. So I want to end here at this point. The technology that I'm using for this webinar does not easily allow questions and answers because of the delay that occurs between when I'm speaking and when you actually hear me. But there are these technology platforms are improving all the time. And I look forward to being able to, in the future, have platforms where we actually can have much more of an interaction. But I want to encourage you, if you do have any questions, to email me, even give me a call. There's my contact information, my phone number, my email address. If you have any questions about anything that was covered this evening, and if you want to inquire about arranging an affordable telehealth video consultation, again, just either give me a call or send me an email. So with that, I'd like to thank you again for being on the webinar. I hope this was of help to you. Let's see whether or not I can get back to okay, there was a little delay there, but again, I want to thank you for being on our webinar tonight. And I look forward to being in touch. I look forward to doing another webinar before too long. I hope you'll invite your friends, that you'll be on it, that you'll invite your friends and family, so that we can really share the information that they may not be getting through their own, through the media. They may not be getting it even from their own doctors, whatever, but hopefully information that could be of real benefit. So thank you again for being on our webinar this evening, and I look forward to being in touch. Thank you very much. Bye.